Welcome to Whispering Cabins, where we share cozy horror tales of ghosts, folklore, and forgotten places. So grab a blanket, light a candle, and settle in. The night is waiting. Tonight, we tell the story of the old sewing box. When Margaret's grandmother passed away, the family divided her belongings with quiet efficiency. Margaret had expected to receive something ordinary, a few cookbooks, perhaps a porcelain teacup or two. Instead, when the will was read, she was surprised to find herself the inheritor of her grandmother's sewing box. It was not a modest little container, but a sturdy wooden chest, polished smooth with years of touch. The lid creaked when she opened it, releasing the faint scent of lavender sachets and old fabric. Inside, spools of thread gleamed in every color. Needles neatly pinned to faded felt, and tucked into the corners were scraps of half-finished embroidery. Margaret remembered her grandmother bent over this very box, her hands moving with patient precision, fixing hems, darning socks, mending worn quilts. As a child, she had sat at her feet, entranced by the rhythm of needle and thread. Now, with the chest sitting squarely on her own living room floor, Margaret felt both comforted and unsettled. The first time she used it was out of necessity. Her favorite cardigan had a gaping hole in the sleeve, and though she wasn't much of a sewer herself, she chose a spool of forest green thread and carefully stitched it closed. When she slipped the cardigan back on, she gasped. Not only was the hole gone, but the knit fabric looked new, as though it had never frayed at all. She ran her fingers over the sleeve. Perfect. A little thrill ran through her. Perhaps her grandmother's skill had left some trace in the box, guiding her clumsy stitches. She began to use it more often, patching a torn bedsheet, reattaching a button, sewing a rip in an old stuffed bear she'd kept since childhood. Each time, the repairs were flawless. More than flawless, they were restorations. The items didn't look mended, they looked reborn. The strangeness began with the bear. She had stitched its ear back on late one evening, the lamplight warm on her hands. She set it on the chair and went to bed. In the middle of the night, she woke to a faint sound, a soft, steady scratching, like thread pulling through cloth. When she flicked on the light, the bear sat upright on the chair, ear perfectly in place, its button eyes catching the glow. She laughed nervously, telling herself she must have set it that way without remembering. Still, she placed it back down, face first this time. In the morning, it was sitting upright again. Margaret told herself it was silly to be frightened. Nothing had truly happened. No footsteps, no voices, just a stuffed toy sitting oddly. But her unease grew as she continued sewing. One rainy afternoon, she repaired a tattered quilt her grandmother had once kept in the guest room. She remembered that quilt well, its corners chewed ragged by time, one patch forever loose. She stitched it carefully, using a spool of deep red thread from the bottom of the box. That night, when the rain lashed against the windows, she woke again. The quilt was spread neatly over her bed. She hadn't placed it there. She distinctly remembered folding it at the foot of the couch. As she lay beneath its weight, she thought she felt a pulse beneath the fabric, like a second heartbeat pressing close to her own. The next day, she decided to test it. She retrieved from the attic a cracked porcelain doll that had belonged to her grandmother. Its face was split in two, one glass eye missing. Margaret hesitated, then chose a spool of pale thread that gleamed like bone. She stitched the porcelain back together with trembling hands. The seam vanished beneath her touch, the doll's face smoothed once more. The missing eye rolled gently from the box, as though it had been waiting for her, and clicked into its socket. When she placed the doll on the mantel, its eyes followed her. She was sure of it. Margaret considered locking the sewing box away, but a pull, part curiosity, part something deeper, kept her from doing so. It was as though her grandmother's voice whispered from the wood, urging her to continue. One evening, her neighbor knocked on the door, holding a broken rosary. "I heard you've been mending things," the woman said. "Could you fix this?" It belonged to my mother. Margaret almost refused, but politeness overtook her. She took the beads and set to work. The thread was delicate, but with her grandmother's box, the repair was swift. When she returned it, the woman's eyes filled with tears. "Thank you. I swear I can feel her again, closer than before." Margaret shivered. That night, the house was not empty. She heard footsteps in the hall, a rustle of skirts brushing the floorboards, a whisper of her name. She rose, clutching the lantern, and found the quilt draped across the chair, the doll perched atop it, the stuffed bear resting in its lap. All of them mended, all of them watching. And in the corner, barely visible in the flickering light, was her grandmother's rocking chair, empty, but swaying gently. Margaret backed away, heart racing. She understood now. The sewing box didn't just repair objects. It repaired the ties between the living and the dead. Her grandmother had given her more than a gift. She had passed on a responsibility. Margaret stood in the doorway, staring at the box. She could lock it away. She could burn it. But even as she thought it, her fingers itched for thread, for needle, for the next stitch. The rocking chair creaked once, as though in approval. Margaret exhaled slowly, sat down at the sewing box, and opened the lid. "All right, Grandma," she whispered. "Let's see what else needs mending." And the house, warm and watchful, seemed to sigh in relief. Thank you for spending some time here at Whispering Cabins, where the light is low and the stories linger. If you enjoyed tonight's tale, don't forget to subscribe or share with someone who loves a gentle chill before bed. Until next time, sleep well if the night lets you.